Salute to you all. Brave never fall. On the last TBNF Connections podcast, we talked about listening to understand in relationships. I highly recommend you go back and listen to that podcast before you listen to this one. I'm going to reference it, but I don't want to spend too much time talking about what I talked about in that podcast. I went back and listened to it and realized there was something I wanted to expand upon, and that was being true to yourself in relationships. Listening to understand is a tool. It's a skill. It's something that is essential if you want the people of value in your life to remain in your life and grow with you, not just be passively in it, but actually be growing with you, but in their own way. They're free to grow in their own way, and you're free to grow in your own way, and you're connected together by just the simple idea of growth. The fact that both of you are growing, and that's any relationship, and that can be a group of people. That doesn't have to be a one-on-one relationship. That can be groups of people. That can be any place you go where someone you have to see often, every day even, and it's an obligation for you to speak to these people. You can't run from them. You can't jettison them completely. You have to deal with these people on a regular basis. So learning who these people are is a true skill. It helps you better understand how to deal with them, and it helps them better understand where you're coming from when you choose to deal with them in a particular fashion. But I wanted to touch on something that I think is missing in a lot of relationships. And I think it's that piece of yourself that you have to hold on to tightly, no matter what happens. If you truly trust yourself and you stand on values and you know who you are and you know where you want to go in life, and you're not looking at your life as some horrible accident, and you're looking at it as a beautiful, purposeful achievement. I mean, every person who's alive, that is an unbelievable achievement, that you can wake up every day and be able to make decisions and act upon those decisions and think for yourself and be able to do the things that you want to do. Those are all things you should never take for granted. And if you're moving in a positive way for yourself, and you know that, and you're feeling good and you're feeling healthy about yourself, why should you give a piece of that up to get a piece of somebody else's life into your body, into your orb, into your space, whatever it is you consider your being to be, your consciousness, your soul, whatever you consider that to be? Why would you give up all the best parts of yourself to have someone else be in your life? And this isn't something that you can go back and say, okay, well, when we're kids, we don't have a choice. You don't have a choice when you're a child, which is why it's so damn important that we have good parents and good upbringing for kids in this world. They deserve the opportunity to see things being done in a way that is, at least, if nothing else, a positive, respectful, value-filled, morally, the morals that we have in our life. This is the big thing, because you can go all over the world and people's morals are different. So when you start saying what is morally right, that's really hard depending on who's listening to this, because whoever's listening to this, their morals may be fundamentally different than someone else's. But let's just take that all up to the side and push it to the side and say, okay, let's just go general base level. No matter what morals you have, if you believe that they're good, go with that, right? Now, of course, there are countries and societies and cultures out there whose morals, we have a big question mark next to them. We all know that. But that's not the point. Let's just stick with positive things here. Let's just stick with the things that we know as being positive things that will help a child grow into a positive, healthy person who has the opportunity to grow to be whatever they want to be, free of restrictions. Now, again, that's not the case all over the world, but you know what? We don't get to pick and choose who our parents are. We're born, we're here, and we have to deal with it. Fair or unfair, once you're old enough to make the decisions for yourself, you have to deal with it. You have to get on with your life. You have to start reshaping and creating the vision you want for yourself. And you can't accept your life as being not fulfilled and with no purpose based on how you were brought up. That can only be an excuse for so long. There is help out there. There is your own help you can bring for yourself, meaning clarity. You can be aware that there's things you need to work on regardless of whose fault it is. And that's where we get back to being true to yourself. What good is it to listen and understand someone if you don't listen and understand who you are? We can always point the finger at other people. And in relationships in general, if we're not happy, we can point the finger at ourselves and say we're not happy. But if we know somebody else is genuinely making us unhappy, then we go to another place and we start asking ourselves questions like, why, what's wrong with this person? How come they're not making me happy? And that's not the question you should be asking yourself. You should be saying, what's wrong with me? How come I am unhappy with this person? It has nothing to do with them as far as your happiness goes. In any relationship, you are responsible. You are to hold yourself completely accountable and own who you are and your threshold for happiness. So if your happiness threshold is not very high and you're very pessimistic and you're very low in vibrations when it comes to positivity, how do you think that's going to resonate to other people? You're probably not going to get that happy person on the other end coming at you. They may be able to keep it up for a while, but after a while, a projection of negativity and a projection of pointing fingers at people and not holding yourself accountable, regardless of the integrity of the other person, again, we have to focus on ourselves. We can't worry about if this person is making us unhappy or they're a bad person or whatever it is that's going on in their lives. That's their business. We have to focus on our business. We have to be aware and we have to have the clarity and the peace of mind to know that it's okay to feel like I'm not okay. Why does every day have to be a good day? And if every day was a good day, how would you grow? And if you're in a relationship, if every day in a relationship is bliss and joy and unicorns and rainbows, how do you grow? How do you know what the other person is really capable of doing, saying, and acting, and what they would go through, what they would actually do if something truly happened, not only one day, but what if it was a prolonged bad day? What if it happened for 3 months, 4 months, a year? Who's going to stick it out with the other person? Who's going to be the person who stands on their values and says, I'm just going to hold myself accountable. I'm looking at you. I see you working on yourself. I trust you. I have your back. Are both of those people in the relationship, or the multiple people in those relationships, if it's a group dynamic, are all those people aligned enough to know that no matter what the other person is going through, as long as they're handling themselves, I'm free to handle myself, but I'm still connected to these people. But my job is to make sure that I'm my own rock, that I'm my own temple, I'm my own creation, I'm my own great pyramid, I'm my own wonder of the world. I need to just worry about what I need to do. And that's how being true to yourself, I feel that's something that we have to stay focused on in relationships. You have to stay focused on what you are doing first. And the listening to understand. When we get into these conversations with people and we know there may be some tension involved before we get into the conversation. There may be some friction going when it comes to the alignment. There may be some imbalances going when it comes to the overall nature of the relationship. When you go into a conversation with someone that you care about and that you want to have this conversation with, being true to who you are is going to help so much in that conversation. You can't sugarcoat who you are. You can't lie and bullshit your way through the conversation. You have to be brutally honest. And we too often as people want to be nice, and especially, again, if you're a kind, friendly person, you're not going to want to verbally hurt someone. We talked about on the last podcast, words as weapons, words that wound. That doesn't mean because you tell somebody in a brutally honest way that you're hurting them. If anything, you are helping them. You are handing them a blanket and saying, here, I'm trying to make you feel more comfortable with me. And if the person is trying to make themselves more comfortable with themselves, that conversation is going to go really well. Through experience, I have come to see that when you start coming to people with you just being yourself, you're not trying to hurt anyone. You're not trying to have unrealistic expectations of where the conversation is going to go. You don't have to have, well, this needs to be said in this conversation or I'm done. Because you can't control other people. You definitely can't control the way they think. You can't control the way that they feel. You can't control anything about another person. We talked about sexual polarity in the last video. It doesn't really matter at that point. If you are in a place where you are uncomfortable in your own skin with having a conversation that may go into a brutally honest category, where people are having to point out flaws and you have to point out the flaws for yourself, that's the most important thing. If you can point out the flaws of yourself before the other person says it, or the other person says, yeah, I agree, then what's the problem? The problem comes when people start pointing out things that you weren't aware of, that you have no clarity on at all. You just was sitting there and they blindside you with something, and then it stings and it hurts because you know they're right. Unfortunately, if they're right, and you know that they're right, it's your responsibility at that moment to either agree and say, I agree, I'll work on it, or just own up to it and have the conversation right then and there about what the issue is. A lot of people know that there's something wrong with them, and they'll just simply say, I agree, I'll work on it, but you know, and they know, they're not going to do shit about it. And those kind of conversations, especially if you've had these conversations with people before, where you've heard people say that they're going to change and they never do, is that person being true to themselves? Or are they being true to themselves and that's just who they are? There are people who say and talk about change but never actually get around to do it. They don't want to do it. It's too hard. It's too difficult. It gets them way out of their comfort zone. It gets them way out of their zone of contentment. They need to be happy. Things can't go wrong in their lives. They cannot have disagreements. They may be the sweetest, kindest people ever that you would meet. They simply do not have the intestinal fortitude to do something different that promotes change and especially promotes growth. It's one thing to change, but you have to change to grow. You have to change to grow. You can't just change and then stand there in stasis. You can't just change and say, okay, this is it. I hope it works out. No, you have to ensure that it works out. You have to create a vision for yourself and cultivate that growth within yourself. And when people start to see that, you'll know, okay, I'm doing the right thing. If other people are saying it, that means I'm projecting it. That means I'm heading in the right direction. We get in these conversations and in these interactions and these relationships with people, but we don't have a clue what we really are inside. And I say that generally because I always take it back to me with all these things. It got me thinking about how I grew into being able to listen more and to be able to be a person who is a good communicator. And it was a change and it was growth. And in that growth, I knew, okay, you can't just change and say, okay, I'm a better listener, good enough. I knew it was something I struggled with my entire life, and I knew I could not drop the ball on this one. Once I started figuring out how to communicate better, I thought, okay, what is the best version of that you could be? How much better could you communicate? How much better could you become a speaker? Again, I used to stutter when I was a kid. I used to be so afraid to talk because I just didn't talk a lot. So I would talk to my family members and I would joke around, but to have a conversation with someone, that didn't happen with me. I was too afraid to talk. I used to stutter all the time, and it really messed with me because obviously the older you get and you get in higher grade levels, you're going to be speaking more. You're going to be standing in front of the class more. You're going to be speaking in front of the class, doing speeches. You're going to be writing more. You're going to be asked to express yourself more in front of other people. You're going to have conversations with adults. You're going to have conversations with people you don't know. I changed schools a lot when I was a kid. So when I was in 4th grade, I went to one elementary school. In 5th grade, I went to another elementary school that was like almost an hour away, 35 minutes away. Completely different dynamic. Then I went to another school district when I was in middle school. So from 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, I was in 3 different school districts. Every time feeling like basically a new student because you have to relearn all these new people, the new districts, the new principals, the new secretaries, the new counselors, all these people, I was in music, the new band teachers. Then when I was in 8th grade, I moved to a completely different state in the middle of 8th grade. I went from Missouri down to Louisiana. And then when we were down there, my father died. So, and then at the end of 8th grade down in Louisiana, we came back up, and I went back to the district that we had left, but I was in high school then. And we all know that if you skip school, I mean, if you miss a whole semester of school when you're in middle school and you don't see your friends for a while, when you come back, it's like meeting new people. They're the same friends, but they're different in that little amount of time. It wasn't even a year's time. They were completely different. And I had the same friends, but the relationship was just not the same, especially after having to deal with a death in the family like your father dying. I wasn't the same. So, you know, people approach me different. People approach me as if I was wounded and I was weak. And I had, at that point in time, kind of regained some confidence. I had some close cousins and friends who supported me, and these friends and family members ended up becoming very toxic in my life, and they are none of them, not one, are in my life right now. I had to jettison every single one of those people. When I look back on it, they were helping me with confidence in the wrong direction. You know, I was getting more confident, I was talking, but then after my father died, I kind of clammed back up again. And then I got some confidence again with these same family members. I couldn't have my friends at school, so I had these family members. So then when I got done with high school, I got into college. When I got into college, that's when I started realizing, okay, I have a fresh start, really. And I started jettisoning some of those friends and family members, not willingly. I just had a different life. They didn't go to college. A lot of them didn't graduate high school. And I wanted a career in music, and I was a musician. I was traveling and playing my trumpet everywhere and writing songs and playing on stages every other night. It was an amazing time, and I did that for years. The problem is that throughout that entire time, every single one of my relationship dynamics was not built on anything as far as growth. It was me talking to people who I was not truly aligned with. But you don't know what you don't know. And when you're not aware, you are not aware. And looking back on it, if this version of me was to go back and talk to any of those people, there's not one person I could point to say, this person would be my friend. I shouldn't say that. There might be two people, looking back on it, that I would still be friends with now. And those two people are still friends with me to this day. I don't talk to them all the time, but when we see each other, it's like family. They're almost not like friends to me. They're like brothers. But there's two freaking people that I could truly trust and say, no matter what, I know these people will be there for me. The rest of them, they come and go, and they really don't have any value in my life. And the ones that were really toxic, that interfered in my life, that even affected my marriage, they're gone. And I had to start over from scratch and say, you know what? Time to stop living in fear. You used to stutter. You're scared to talk. You know what? Start talking. Start figuring out a way to speak and communicate in a way where you're effective. I've always had a mind that I could think, but I couldn't speak the words properly and articulate what I wanted to say. I worked on it and 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 worked on it over and over and over again. For years, I had a YouTube channel doing exotic animals. I had an exotic animal business, and I used those videos purposely to learn how to speak better. I got to the point where I wasn't saying every 5 seconds, or like every 5 seconds, or having big pauses, or going through these phases where I'm repeating the same thing over and over again because they were like buzzwords. It took years to learn how to communicate. And then once I learned how to communicate, I realized I had another issue. I didn't know how to listen. Now I can talk. I can talk to people. I can communicate. I can get my thoughts out. And I feel strong and confident about that. And guess what it turned me into? An asshole. I was missing another important element. And that was the ability to shut the hell up and listen to other people. Once I figured that out, I was like, okay, I can stand on values with this. And this was after my awakening, when I realized I wanted to be something more than what I was. I wanted to change my life in a positive way. And once I started listening, that helped a lot. But then I knew there was another element that was missing there. And that is something that I finally just got over the threshold with. And that is trusting myself. Staying true to who I am. Once I figured that out, my mentality changed, mindset shift, big time. And it has changed my life. And it hasn't even been that long. And there has been so many things that have happened to me since that mindset shift that has moved me in a positive direction and made me feel confident in the right way. Not as an asshole, but as a person who has the right to stand upon his values and say, this is me, take it or leave it. It has made communicating with people a lot easier. People who have communicated with me before this are communicating differently with me now because I'm just coming at them with the way of just saying, this is me. And I'm really more interested in hearing what you have to say more than what I have to say. Because I want to learn more about the people around me. I spent so many years thinking only about myself in the wrong direction. Thinking about yourself in a self-love, self-respect, self-control, self-awareness type way, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you think of yourself as an egotistical, entitled asshole, that's a problem. And nobody really wants to be around someone like that. You may have people around you who are like that, but you are in some weird relationships if that's the case, if they're sticking around you and they know you're an asshole. Because that's a choice. We all choose to interact with who we want to interact with. I choose to interact with people who are true to themselves, just like I am true to myself. I had to realize once I got to this state of being true to myself that I cannot any longer care about what other people truly think about me if I know it's not true about me. Now think about that. I can no longer care about what other people think about me if I know what they think is a truth about me is not a truth. Because I can't communicate with someone who believes something about me that I fundamentally know is not true. So being true to yourself helps in those conversations. It helps in those relationships, especially with a significant other, especially with a girlfriend or boyfriend, or if you're dating. Because you are wasting valuable time. If you are in a relationship with anyone, why not be true with yourself from day one? Why not be the most truthful about who you are to the other person from day one? Instead of hiding things that you know you're working on. If the person is a good person of character and value, they're going to appreciate that you are aware enough and have enough clarity to be able to say, I'm working on this and this and this. What are you working on? If the person says nothing, then you get up, say, hey, listen, I'm going to pay the bill. Goodbye. If you're dating someone, because everybody should be working on something. Everybody should be working on something. If somebody says they're not working on anything, red flag. Red flag. You should always be working on something. There's always something about you that could be improved. There's always something about you that needs to go through something that you haven't gone through yet. Something that's going to test you. Something that's going to be something that you're going to look back on and say, that was a very negative, horrible situation. One of the most memorable situations of my life because I learned so much from that moment. Not every moment you have that's life-changing is going to be positive. People think about that all the time. If I win the lottery, that's a life-changing moment. It can also be a life-changing moment when someone dies. When my father died, I'll never forget that. That was the opposite direction of winning the lottery. It was like winning the death lottery. It sucked. It affected my life, and it is still affecting my life. And it's something I have to work on. I have to get over my limiting beliefs that I'm going to pass away at the same age he is. He died when he was 45. I'm 40. I'm about to be 41. I had this mentality my whole life that death is just around the corner. And I've had a lot of other people who died when he was younger. I had a very close cousin who died when he was 21. And I think I was 19 or 20. He might have been 23, somewhere around in there. But the point is, that fucking freaked me out. One of my closest cousins, he's like a brother. He's actually, had he been alive to this day, we might be best friends. He might be on this podcast with me. No joke. He was that positive. He was that sweet of a person. His name is Patrick, and I really miss him. He was an awesome dude. And if he was alive right now, me and him would be very close. He was doing this stuff way before I was doing it. He was all about positivity. Always had a smile on his face. You never saw this dude frown. Nice to everyone. Everybody loved this dude. And he died down in Miami in a laundromat. He was overweight, collapsed dead with a heart failure. Just like that, gone. And that screwed me up. screwed me up. And I had a couple other things happen like that. And a few years ago, a kid I was mentoring, he was such a good kid. He lived across the street from us, and his mother was she was just struggling. She had a lot of kids. Fathers wasn't there. And his name was Chevy. He was a really good kid, and I mentored him. I used to take him to the Metrolink so he can take the train to work. I would go over and cut the grass for him when he couldn't do it. He would disappear, and if he screwed up, he would come across the street. Hey, can I do this? I'm like, listen, I would mentor him. And then one day I'm at work and I get a call from my wife at the time. She says Chevy's dead. I'm like, what do you mean Chevy's dead? He's 21 years old. She's like, someone shot and killed him. And I got out the phone and I sat there and I'm like, this is insane. I didn't even believe it. And on the car ride home, I lost it. And I realized, I'm like, this is a pattern in my life. Like, I get close to these people and then they leave me type deal. Not in a good way, like death. And I'm thinking, who would shoot this kid? And come to find out, it was an altercation in a house with some guy and his sister. He thought he was disrespecting his sister, and he shot him in the head. And that was it. And Chevy was an awesome guy. He had a little baby girl. And to sit at that funeral, and his dad, that was his second kid who had been murdered, that he had to watch bury at a young age. And his dad is the most awesome dad in the world. He's losing his crap now, obviously, but he's like breeds horses and he rides horses all the time. He's an awesome guy. And I say all that to say this. We don't know when life's going to end. And the people, when you're gone, who are affected by it, that's the most important thing. Keanu Reeves said in a really good quote, he was asked, what do you think happens when you die? And he says, I know that I'm going to leave, the people that I leave behind that I love are going to be hurt. They're going to miss me. He basically said, the people that I love, I know they're going to miss me when I leave. That's the only thing I do know about death. And I think about that, and that quote just hit me straight in the heart, because that is true. When you die, you live on through the memories of other people. These are podcasts that I made. I initially started making these podcasts for my son because I realized when my father died, I had absolutely no record of his voice. There's no video of him. I have pictures, and not a lot. I have maybe 50 pictures of him. And my mother hoards them as if they're gold. So I thought, what can I make for my son? All the questions that I would have asked my dad. What are the things I can give to my son? So if I was to leave this planet right now, he would have hours and hours and hours of video of his dad talking, and not only talking, but giving him advice and telling him about the mistakes that he made, and he can listen to him whenever he wants. That is a gift I'm trying to leave to my son. The Brave Never Fall is about him, mainly more than anyone. It's about him so he can help himself and be able to listen to his father. But further than that, it's serving to help other people, and through that, it has served to help me find my true purpose, which is life coaching. I realized that was why I've always been here, is to help people and to go through things and be able to articulate and communicate with people effectively and be able to make sure we're all in this together. We're free as people, but we're all connected. And the truer each person is to themselves, the better each relationship you're going to be involved in is going to turn out. It's nothing to say that you being the best version of yourself won't allow you to get in a relationship with somebody who is going the opposite direction. They're not the best version of themselves, and they probably never will be. But that's not your issue. You can't allow that type of mentality to make you not be in relationships. Being in relationships is healthy. It's beautiful, especially if you're in a romantic relationship. Nothing greater than be able to be with someone and have a partner who understands you fully. And you have a partner that you understand, and that they are working on themselves. So there's always something to talk about because there's growth on both sides. And you're going to experience things together. You're going to have hard times together. And you understand that time is your ally, not a threat. So your time together is spent in the way that water flows. It's just going to keep flowing no matter what. There's no need to put limitations and bars and boundaries on the time you have to grow together. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be, right? That's what people say. But it's not meant to be if you don't work on yourself. If you don't figure out who you are, you can only get so much of a level of person in your life. If you're a low value person, how do you expect to get a high value person? You may get one out of some superficial surface level thing, some high level person, because we all have different levels of who we think is high and low. But let's say you're a high level person, somebody who's wealthy and successful. It could be male or female, depending on who you are. That person may still fall in love with you if you have a low paying job. That doesn't matter if you have high character, but it can swing both ways. That's why alignment is so important. What is the point of alignment if we're going to ignore all the reasons why alignment is important? You're aligned because you have to know who you are. How do you know if you're aligned with someone if you don't know who you are? And especially, let's say you do know who you are and you're masking it, or you're turning the dial towards let's be fake about it instead of putting it let's be real. You know, let's sugarcoat what I'm going to say. I really wish he would stop doing this. I really wish he would say that, but I'm not going to do that because, you know, there's other things that I want from this person right now. They'll probably change later. If not, I'll just start an argument with them. They'll know I'm serious then. I'll boil over in emotion. Emotion is fine to get emotional. It is okay to get angry. It is okay to have an outburst. It's okay for some people to get fed up and yell and say, hey, look, this is what I want, and that's it. I've done it. Everybody's done it. Just because you're a positive person and you strive towards not having arguments doesn't mean you're not going to have one occasionally. The goal is try to avoid them as much as possible. But occasionally, we are human beings. Emotions boil over, and then we find out really what someone's capable of. How cool would it be if you actually knew what somebody was capable of when they boil over before they have the boil over? Or get to a point where you don't have to have a boil over because you're able to communicate effectively. That comes from communicating right off the bat with people. It's not 7 months down the line, let me tell you about all these flaws that I had the entire time. I don't think that's fair to the other person. I don't think you're being fair to yourself. And I certainly don't think you're being fair to your own relationship in that case. If you know there's something going on in your life and there's something you need to say that is a major issue in your life, something that is preying upon you and that you're fearful of, and that's making you a person that you really don't like for yourself, why wouldn't you tell the other person this right off the bat? Why not be true about who you are? And the opposite direction. If you're a very positive person and you like things to be simple and you want this and you want that, why not say that too? But what is the reason? Why wouldn't we say that? We wouldn't say it because we're afraid of something. And what are we afraid of? Are we afraid we're going to lose the person if we say a certain thing? Is there something about them that we're assuming that if we tell them this bit of information about ourselves that we know is the truth, that they're going to run away from us? Are we afraid that if we say a certain thing to this person, they're going to take it the wrong way and get butthurt and think that it's a weapon when you were just giving them constructive criticism? Because if that's the case, those are red flags. And then you have to go back and ask yourself a simple question. Is this person aligned with my values then? If I'm unable to speak to this person with my true self and get what I want from this person based on my values, then why are you wasting your time? You have to ask yourself, why am I wasting my time with someone where I know that their values aren't aligned with mine, and I'm adjusting everything to make sure that some of my values are aligned with them? Now, of course, we can't align every value with someone else. And what is the fun in that anyway? There is fun in exploring somebody who has some differences there. Even religious thing. There's people out there who have two different religions, and their political parties are different, and their outlooks on life are different. The way that they do life together is the way that they view it may be different, but they still make it work. Why? Because the core values, the ones that are most important, are the ones that are aligning perfectly. Maybe not perfectly. I don't believe in that word really, but as best as they could be. Because we're changing. So if to say perfectly, that would be perfect in one moment, and then that moment is gone in a spark. We try to align the best that we can. We try to get this person to stay connected to us as best we can. because we're living a life of a journey. We're on our own journey that has started since birth. The moment you took your first breath was a moment that you started your journey. This person in your life wasn't there unless, I mean, maybe they were, you didn't know it. I mean, how often, I would say, like, especially if you meet someone and they're in the same town, how often did you see the person that you ended up marrying and not realizing it? There's people who went to school with their significant other for 4 years and didn't realize it until 10 years after they were married. Like, you know, they're like, well, not the same school, but like same school district and things like that. It was like, oh my goodness, we were around each other for 10 years and we didn't even realize it. You were just like one school away. That's awesome. That kind of stuff is awesome to think about. That is the greatest part about being a human being, is that you just don't know how these journeys are going to crisscross and link up. But let's say that really nice person is out there, and when that journey links up with you, when you want to be ready and just tell them, hey, this is me. Be excited about it, please. If you're not excited about who I am, then I always say, you know, this is not going to work. Or if you pretended to be excited about who I am, then later on we come to find out that there's a lot of things you don't like about me, then we're taking a little walk to the plane, I'm handing you a parachute, and we're going to jettison you. And I make that sound worse than it is, but obviously the jettison means, obviously, you know, you can come back in my life anytime once we get aligned in some way. You go work on yourself, I'll work on myself if I have to work on myself, certain things, which there are always things we have to work on, right? And that's why communication up front is so important. And being true to who yourself is important upon meeting someone. And not only that, staying consistent with it. That discipline about yourself, you know, self-discipline is huge. It has effects on things other than just getting after it and getting things done and having extra time to get more things done, or having time to have some R&R. It also affects your relationships. You know, if you're an undisciplined person, you're going to be undisciplined about some things in the relationship as well. It's hard to turn that on and off. You know, either you have discipline, the mentality of discipline is either there or it's not. You can't pick and choose what you want to have discipline about and what you don't. You know, there's things that we do more, I guess, of like somebody that can be very disciplined about this one thing. Well, that means you're disciplined. Whatever you're doing for that one thing, do it with the rest. I've told people, it's like, you're either, if there's something you do every single day and it's something you love to do and you do it and just like, I never miss a day without doing this, you're disciplined. You're just not applying that same thing to other areas in your life because you're probably afraid to do something in those other areas. But you are disciplined. You are disciplined. You'll know an undisciplined person when you meet them. Especially if you spend enough time with them. You'll know when somebody's undisciplined, and you'll realize you have more discipline than you think. But that goes into the relationship as well. You know, it's that mindset. You know, how can I, no matter what, be true to myself every single time I have a conversation with someone? Every time I meet someone new, I'm going to be true. I'm not going to be a fake person. I'm not going to give a fuck what anybody thinks about me if it's not true to who I am. That's their problem. It is not my business to care about what other people think about me. It's none of my business. You have to work on yourself first. And if you're working on yourself first, you don't have to worry about anything. Everything else is deflected and you don't have to worry about it. You know who you are. Being disciplined about it is where we can really, really start to make some changes and then grow in those changes. Because it'll be in the back of your mind all the time. In your subconscious, you will be always in a state of realness. I'm going to be true no matter what. It is something I've worked on for years and years and years. It is one of the hardest things ever. And I just hit that threshold of being like, finally, I've gotten to a point where I can completely trust myself and be true to who I am. And I don't have to change anything other than the stuff that I know I need to work on that's going to cultivate growth through the changes that I want to make for myself in a positive way. The things that I know that are flaws that I got to continue to work on. Nobody's perfect. Got to continue working on them. But I'm not doing it just for me. I'm doing it for the people that I have deep relationships with. I'm doing it for my son, for my son's mother. I'm doing it for my mother, my sister, my brother, for my close friends and family. And my close coworkers, my future coworkers, my future family members, my future friends. I'm doing it for them. I'm doing it for my future self. I'm doing it for my grandchildren. I'm doing it for everyone and myself. Again, self-love through freedom and connection. Who you are, I say this all the time, who you are is very important. Who you project yourself to be to other people is your creation. We can listen. We can understand. We can have conversations with people. What does that really mean if you're not listening and understanding yourself and you're not true to yourself, but you expect other people to be true to you? Is that a fair exchange? Is that a fair assessment of yourself in the current moment? You can ask yourself that question. Are you a person who is true to themselves in every situation and with every person? Or are you acting fake? Are you turning that dial to fakeness because you get something out of it when you do that? There's a little easy, comfortable, content reward that you get from being fake. Somebody might say something they otherwise wouldn't say to you if they knew you weren't really like that. So we have to be fake. We got to present ourselves to be something that we're not, out of acceptance from other people, as if it really matters what other people think about you. They'll think about you what you think about you. They'll see about you what you are. What you choose to be about yourself is what they're going to see, is what they're going to react to. Therefore, there is no need to walk up to the dial and turn it to fakeness. You can keep it on default, which is the true you. That's when relationships start to get easy. That's when you start connecting with people who are super aligned with you. That's when your self-confidence is going to rise. That's when everything in life, which seems so damn hard and difficult, starts to look really simple and manageable. That's when you realize there are doors opening up that you have walked in, and now you can do something in a new environment. You can create something new. These are the things that I strive for every day now. It is that process. It is a long process. It is a different process for every person, but it is always going to be a process that is ongoing, which means it's a long process. It's a mindset. It is something you have to instill in yourself, in your subconscious, the discipline to stay true to who you are. And if there are things that you don't like about you, that you say, I don't want this to be the truth about myself because I'm in a relationship with someone, whether it's a friend, a family member, your son, daughter, mother, brother, husband, wife. I don't care if it's your dentist, your doctor, your lawyer, the gas station attendant, the wine seller. I don't care who it is. Each and every one of those people you have some type of a relationship with. And if you aren't in your own default mode as far as who you are truly, and understand all the flaws about yourself and all the positive things about yourself, what are you presenting in that conversation? What are you presenting in those relationships? What are you looking for to grow out of something that is fake? That's like putting a fake plant in the middle of your front yard and getting pissed at it because it's not growing and it's fading. That's what you're doing. You're growing something that is never going to grow. It's going to fade, wither, and get blown away in the wind as soon as a good storm comes. There are no roots. The roots are fake. It's a fake, artificial construct that is meant to look like something beautiful that is natural, and it grows. We don't want to be that fake plant sitting in the middle of the yard. We don't want fake roots. We want to be people who are able to communicate effectively with other people who we value in our lives, the people who have accepted us and our flaws, and they are going to stick by us no matter what because they have flaws that they're working on and they unconditionally understand what you're going through. But you got to give them something back in return. We can't just take and not give. Your job is to give. And when you earn what you take, there's the satisfaction. That's when the relationship starts to blossom and bloom in a positive way. It's not going to blossom and bloom when that fake plant sitting in the middle of the yard based on something that's easy. You don't want to put the work into actually going out every day and watering it and making sure that it grows and doing what you have to do as the relationship with that plant. And it's a weird way of describing it, but hey, that's what popped in my damn mind. And there's nothing wrong with that. Why? Because I'm staying true to myself. I trust myself to say stuff like that now. And I didn't. It's all about confidence. Self-confidence is to be able to smile when you know, hey, I don't give a damn who thinks anything about me. I don't give a shit who thinks anything about me. All I care about is the people that I'm aligned with that are valuable in my life. I care about them. They're helping me grow. They give me confidence, so I want to give them confidence. I want to help them grow. I believe that they're special. I believe that they're beautiful. I believe that there are people who, even though they can have a string of bad days, because we all do. I'm raising my hand right now. I certainly do. I can have a string of bad days, strings of bad weeks, but I am not going to crumble under bad values, corrupt morals, and a very negative mindset in life. I'm going to stay true to who I am because I know it works. And all those bad things that happen, all those bad days, they're not because I'm a failure. It's because I'm a success, because those bad days are going to teach me more about myself than anything else in this world. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall.